This is Geek Gab with your host, Dornall, and me, Daddy Warpig. Geek Gab for Saturday, February 29th, 2020. We have a very special guest in the house today, Mrs. AM Freeman. But before we get to that, Dornall, how was your week?
Hey man, it's good. It's good to be back. How about you?
I have had a week that is unequaled in all of my long life.
Oh yeah? Sounds impressive.
And I don't want to go into any more details, but that is absolutely true. Absolutely unequaled. I have had a week that not only has it never been matched before, I sincerely hope it will never be matched again.
Oh, I see. Well, that's why you cap off the week with a Geek Gab here.
Yes.
Just let it go.
So should I tell everybody what day today is?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So folks, I first met Dornall 17 years ago. We've been friends for 17 years. And the very first time I met him, I don't know how this came up in conversation, but he told me that his birthday was today, February 29th, leap year. Now, that's not unusual. People have to be born sometime, and some people are born on the 29th. So that went in my bank because it was unusual, and I remembered that. And for 14 years, I thought that was his birthday.
Oh no.
Or 13 years. Because 4 years ago exactly, I said to him, "Happy birthday!" on today, February 29th, while we were on a phone call discussing some things. And his exact response was, "What? That's not my birthday." And I said, "Really? Because when I first met you, you told me today was your birthday." And he said, "I don't remember that."
I have no recollection of this moment.
And I said, "Well, I do. I've been thinking that was your birthday for the last 13 years. So he's told me his real birthday now, and I can't remember it. It will not go into my brain. There is no space in my head for his real birthday. Even sitting here now, after 4 years, I could not even tell you. I think it's in the first half of the year, but I could not tell you anything more than that. I've got my phone and my calendar and stuff, and so it pops up reminders to tell me when it's his birthday, but other than that, I have no idea. All because when I first met him 17 years ago, he made a joke and completely messed up my recollection. So today, folks, if you want to know what today is, and this is what happened to me, I didn't know this was a leap year. Wasn't paying attention, didn't care. And then I noticed it was a leap year, and I thought, oh, look, it's February 29th. That's Dornall's fake birthday.
My
That's the
fake
first
birthday.
thing I thought. So happy fake birthday, Dornall.
Oh, thanks, man. I really appreciate it. It's good.
Uh,
It's good being. What's the math? 5 years old now. 10 years old.
So, anyways,
Yeah,
happy fake birthday, everybody.
it's leap year. You know, I have a story that's just as embarrassing for me. In that both stories are embarrassing for me. Is that I've confused leap year, the cause for leap year, which is the revolution of the Earth, with the rotation of the Earth. And for years I thought, well, I mean, we don't need to accumulate all these, we don't need to accumulate all these hours and then wait 4 years to add an extra day. We'll just add that time throughout the year. So that's my embarrassing story about that.
It's actually fascinating to me, and probably to very few other people, is how intricate timekeeping is and how many centuries it took for people to develop a calendar that actually stays more or less in time with the solar year, which is not exactly anything. That is to say, the rotation of the Earth that gives us day and night, it's turning on its axis, and the revolution, which is the spinning around the sun, don't match up evenly because they're not clockwork gears, and so the length of a year, of an actual year, is 365 and a quarter days minus 11 minutes and 16 seconds. So we have leap year to take care of that extra quarter days. But then we have that extra 11 minutes and 16 seconds we have to subtract. And so there is, when that accumulates, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but it happened the beginning in 2000, somewhere around there. Whenever there was a leap year there, they didn't actually have the leap year because you take out a leap year to take away that time for that 11 minutes that's accumulated, the quote unquote negative time that we got ahead of the solar year. There's a specific rule for like when a century begins with something and something, something, you take away the leap year. And so that happened very recently to keep us in tune. Plus, and this is something I didn't know, but it's also really cool. There are a few atomic clocks in the world that keep time for everybody, and they're always in sync. And this is like the official time. And they determine at the end, when the end of a year is coming up, that sometimes the speed the Earth travels around the sun changes. Sometimes it goes faster, sometimes it goes slower, because the shape of the Earth's orbit actually varies. Did not know this until like last year. So sometimes they add literally 1 second to the length of a year or subtract a second. And so as the atomic clock is doing its thing, instead of at midnight on New Year's, instead of going to the first second of the new year, they added another second. It goes to 0 and then goes to 1. And 2016, that bastard of a year that everybody hated, got, I think, 2 seconds added to it because, of course, it did. We just had to have extra 2016.
Wow. That was the extra time needed for us to slip into the what is now the best of all timelines.
So
what I'm hearing is if someone wants to write a chaos god, they should have one that like just slightly messes with those like ultimate timekeeper clocks and slowly breaks down the system until everyone goes mad because we can no longer track time.
I find that kind of stuff, just these little nooks and crannies of technology and science fascinating.
It's the kind of stuff you take for granted, but if you think about, is super impressive.
Like if you have if my computer, my phone, and my Xbox, they all keep time automatically, right? You just click a button and they'll keep time automatically. They keep time automatically from one of these, not directly from these time servers, but from subsidiary servers who get time from these time servers. So, they really matter, and devices you use every day get information directly from them. I am done talking about clocks now.
I was gonna ask. I'm gonna put my curmudgeon hat on. We've done so much work to keep accurate track of time and our position in our orbit and all that, yet we still have this weird calendar, and most of the world still uses daylight savings time at home. I can't put these two things together.
Daylight savings time is a boondoggle. I don't know that it ever worked to do what Congress thought it would do. I know that they were trumpeting something back in 2002, 2003 for the war on terror. They're like, we will extend daylight savings time and we will save the nation $15 billion in energy. And it did nothing. And I'm like,
doesn't make any sense.
It was Congress, man. It's not a requirement of the job description to make sense.
Amen.
Oh, but I had a VCR. I know in 2003 that was absolutely necessary because I had a video game machine that was so old it wouldn't hook up to my TV, so I had to hook it up through the VCR to the TV.
Classic.
Loved it. Great. Such an awesome hookup. Patch cables and all kinds of stuff. Just great. Man, I hit the internet and they just did not make cables that did what I needed it to do to change from one video signal to the other, so I had to run it through the VCR. Well, daylight savings time had been the same for 70 years. So of course it was hard coded in ROM on the motherboard of this VCR. And then, literally 3 months before I got the VCR, Congress pulled this crap.
Oh.
And immediately this poor VCR didn't know what time it was, didn't know where it was. You couldn't set the clock or anything. It was so none of it's automatic record functions okay, record this TV program would work because it didn't know what time it is because Congress screwed up daylight savings time.
I feel so sorry for that little VHS. Oh.
What happened to the VCR Act of Congress?
I just thought it was hilarious. It was this right here, this one event is a microcosm of everything Congress does.
I feel like there should be the Brave Little Toaster 3 or 4 or whatever one they haven't made, where it's the sad VCR player that doesn't know its purpose in life because it's very confused about the time change. It sounds so sad.
Oh, and it was. I didn't use any of its capabilities. I didn't have any VCR tapes, so I couldn't play anything through it. Its entire purpose in life is to take one signal through one part of its video feed and put out a signal through another part of its video feed. It was awesome. It was basically a big converter.
Hey, there's still people out there using VHS tapes. I'm not one of them.
Oh, we decided to get a projector instead of a TV, and we're able to use the VHS player with it, and so we can watch the old school cartoon Hobbit projected on our wall.
Oh, that's amazing.
So it's pretty nice. there's still like a ton around. I think I found it for like $5 at a yard sale. It has the VHS side and the DVD side, and there's still like tons at Goodwills.
Oh yeah, sure.
So
Yeah,
here's
that stuff's.
something. Go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted.
Yeah, though that stuff is still around. I guess that's great.
Especially now at Goodwill, since everyone got Disney Plus, there are so many Disney VHS tapes at Goodwills now because everyone's getting rid of their collection they were saving for their children.
And they're suckers too, because half of those things aren't going to be available on Disney Plus.
Yeah, or they're changing it. Like I saw one example of apparently the from Lilo and Stitch, the scene where Lilo's hiding in like the dryer from her sister. They changed it to look like a cabinet.
Huh.
Ooh, hiss. You can't make it look like a dryer because kids call on the dryer and then they'll get killed.
It's so terrible. Yeah. So yeah, I think there's some other things, but there's slight changes that are made to some of the Disney Plus, like the movies that are on there.
Not to mention the stuff thrown in the vault to never come out. I mean, why wouldn't you? What grandchild's collection would be complete without Song of the South? Seriously.
Yeah.
I saw Song of the South in the theaters when I was a kid.
They can't erase the song, right? You ever find yourself humming Zippity Doo Dah every once in a while?
It's a great song. It really is.
Yeah.
I'm hearing the alarm bells going off.
All right.
Between saying Song of the South was a good movie and what I said last week, I think we're in trouble. We're in serious trouble.
YouTube's. Hey, who's going to come after us? Disney just fired Bob Iger. Who knows what's going to happen?
He's not the only one, man. There was a suspiciously large amount of firings and/or quittings over the past month. A lot of them on the exact same day. Like the CEO of MasterCard resigned the same day. I saw a list of them. It's like 7 major CEOs all quit and/or were fired in a 2-week period. And I'm like, what the hell was that? And
That
it was
sounds
all
really suspicious.
right after the Weinstein verdict got handed down, which I am not suggesting is a causal thing there, but it was just like, wait a minute.
That's quite a coincidence.
I did want to say this, though. She's talking about the old school Hobbit, and I assume you're talking about the Rankin Bass Hobbit?
What? Which one is the Rankin Bass Hobbit?
The animated one.
Well, if it's... What other one would it be? Are there other animated Hobbits?
No. Well, the computer animated one that came in 3-hour movie.
Yeah.
No, but AM, you were talking about watching The Hobbit on your wall, right?
Yeah.
And I was assuming you're talking about the Rankin Bass one, right?
I think so.
The Greatest Adventure.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's the right one.
Okay. Yeah, that's a Rankin Bass production.
Mm-hmm.
So they did The Hobbit. They also did The Fellowship of the Ring animated, but they never made any of the other Lord of the Rings movies animated.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to wait, and those were in the 1970s. So we had to wait for 30 years to get proper Lord of the Rings movies.
Mm-hmm.
And they started coming out, guess when? 20 years ago.
Really? Are they that old?
How many years ago?
20.
Cool. I was like 1 or 2, so I didn't really have to wait.
Okay, we curmudgeons over here. Actually, I'm the only curmudgeon here because Man,
I'm a ray of sunshine.
but no, it was 20 years old this year. Would have been December of 2000, but that the Lord of the Rings movies started getting released. There were 3 of them, one year after another. So, some of the greatest movies ever made in cinema. And I think I hear Jeffro having a heart attack somewhere.
Poor guy just fell off his rock climbing wall. Doesn't know what happened. I don't know what came over me.
Oh, Ralph Bakshi. Sorry. Catholic
Yes.
Rancer is correcting me.
We've been corrected.
I accept my correctation.
Plus, I get to show his cool little space dog illustration on stream. There you go. Thanks for listening in.
So, speaking of awkward transitions to something completely unrelated, tell us about your book.
Okay, so we can make it somewhat related. I mean, there is a like epic battle scene which happens in Lord of the Rings. So this one just involves chainsaws, pirates, and dinosaurs, and mechanical wolves, and really weird narwhal men.
Narwhal men.
Yeah, I haven't really like talked about that aspect as much in most of my talkings about it. But yeah, there's a moment where there's like, imagine Slender Men, like tall, long body in a in a black suit, but narwhal heads. And when they enter the battlefield, the effect they have is to make you feel like isolated, kind of a little bit sensory deprivation, because the big theme of the book is hope and despair. And so they're in this battlefield fighting against the mechanical wolves, and Marymae realizes that she's a little girl. There's not a whole lot physically she can do, and so she discovers a way to help, like, encourage the spirits of the pirates and everyone fighting. Trying to get to the Nightmare Man to stop him. And she was bringing everyone together, and then the narwhal guys come and kind of like break that down a little bit, and they got to fight past that. So the overall, my elevator pitch, you could say, is Marymae and the Nightmare Man is about a little girl named Marymae, and her imaginary friend Waldo. They team up with noble pirates armed with chainsaws, fight against mechanical dinosaur. Or no, they ride on the back of mechanical No, not mechanical dinosaur. Sorry. There's too much. What was it? I'm forgetting my elevator pitch. Okay. Armored dinosaurs. They ride on the back of armored dinosaurs. The dinosaurs are good. It's the mechanical wolves you got to watch out for. They're bad, as well as the narwhals and all the inky shadows. And the Nightmare Man. They got to stop the Nightmare Man before he spreads the world in darkness. Not only to the imaginary worlds, but it's also threatening to come out into Marymae's world. And she's noticed her sister's been having her little baby sister has been having a hard time having nightmares. So she knows something's up, and they have to go on this epic quest to figure out what's going on and stop the Nightmare Man from being a meanie head, as she would say. So it's kind of this crazy but really fun, entertaining, kind of heartfelt novelette. And as you can see with my profile, one of the illustrations, we've got 10 of them so far. And the Kickstarter is to help pay for those and, help cover the cost for getting the book published and out and everything. So it's pretty exciting.
That sounds pretty great. I was going to ask you to start again because I only got notes on some of those things in there. I got noble pirates and armored dinosaurs and mechanical wolves.
Yeah, I think I kind of botched my introduction to it. I went all over the place. It's the leap year. We'll blame it on the leap year. This never happened.
Yeah, it's this day has never happened before and will never happen again.
Yeah. So if you can kind of see the little picture, it's the noble pirates and the armored dinosaurs are part of the imaginary or the force to make believe, and Waldo is the little bug boy creature. that's Marymae's imaginary friend. And everyone, she's what, like 6 or 7, and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, your imaginary friend." They don't understand that he's more than he's an imaginary friend, but it's because he's from the imaginary forest. But as Marymae will say, all her other, any other imaginary people don't come up with their own ideas and adventures, but Waldo does. So obviously, he's much more than an imaginary little bug boy. And all the other kids are scared by the strange creatures that live across the forest. She didn't believe there was monsters until the day she met one, and that was Waldo, and they're great friends. So yeah, that's the it's also got a very big subversive theme. Mainly the having hope even when surrounded by despair. And so a lot of the story, it shows like being scared and not knowing what to do all the time, but knowing that you can't stop fighting because that will let the darkness win, and how to, encourage others or depend on your friends to help you get through it and do what needs to be done. So it's kind of a fun. It's short, and the plot's pretty straightforward, but it's really entertaining. Especially, no one has sass like a little girl, that's for sure. So Marymae definitely has some fun moments like that. Just the straightforwardness, not beating around the bush that kids can be like sometimes. And I imagine it as just something you can read if any person that enjoys a fun story. Or another big way I imagine it is reading to your kids, because like I was read to a lot when I was growing up, like the Narnia books and stuff like that, where it's not something I would be able to read on my own just because the language was a little more advanced than my reading level, but I could follow along the story, and it really is an amazing. Like there's so many benefits to reading your kids stories like that, bonding over it, helping them develop their forgetting the word again, story comprehension and everything, just growing that desire for good stories. So I imagine it as a fun book you can read to your kids as well as like over a couple nights or as a bedtime story.
Okay.
Do you guys have any questions on it?
Well, I do. And I pieced together all the information, but I'm new to this campaign. I fully blame Twitter's algorithms. I had no idea you had this Kickstarter going. So, as far as I understand it, this is a children's book that you are writing,
Mm-hmm.
and you've already got artists lined up with illustrations and everything like that. And so that's what your intent is that you've got a children's book, and as you just said, but you intend it to be enjoyable by anybody.
Yeah. So the story was written. The story about how the story came about is I wrote it when I was 15, so like 6 years ago, and it's written in regular prose. It's not like, I feel like if I say children's book, you'll think of like a couple sentences or a paragraph each page with a picture. That's not quite what this is. I would describe it more as an illustrated novelette. And yeah, it's definitely something anyone can enjoy. And then it's got so far we've got 10 pictures illustrated of it, and the Kickstarter is to cover those illustrations, and we need to make the cover. But otherwise, the story itself has been written for a while. I've been sitting on it a long time, really wanting to put it out, but really wanting pictures to go with it. And so the illustrator, Jesslyn Kate, did an amazing job with it. So does that answer your question?
It sure does. That's great. So you've got a story that you've been wanting to get out for a long time, and these illustrations are cool. I'm scrolling through them. If you're hanging out on stream, you can watch. But yeah, she's definitely got a particular style, and so it comes out, I think, as whimsical maybe you intended.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is it's such a whimsical, fun story. I really wanted something to go with it. And the way she does these illustrations is a collage in a way, where part of it is like a print or some sort of like background thing. If you look really closely, it's hard to see on the digitalized pieces, but if you look closely, like all the characters are cut out, and she, I believe it's colored pencils, draws them and then puts them into the picture. She makes like a collage, paints things separately, puts them in, fills it in with like watercolor or colored pencil. So it's a really interesting process. And there is an option on the Kickstarter where you can buy some of the original prints. 2 of them are already taken. But if you wanted, like, loved one of the pieces and wanted to have it for yourself and see in person, you can really see how it's all like finely put together. But yeah, it's so much fun. And there's a lot of different options for the Kickstarter, where you can get digital copy of the book. There's also a lot of options for if you want to get a paperback, if you want to get a paperback with an art print or two, same with the hardback. There's the higher options where you can get a signed copy and your name in the book in our like thank you section. And then if we manage to like really spike this thing up and get to the stretch goals where we would be able to add more illustrations, I have some options where you could actually be like on our team for designing one of the pieces of the illustration, or like design one of the illustrations, or we could hide your name in one of the illustrations at another level. And then for all my bovine fans, I'd have like one spot if we manage to get to that stretch goal where I'll hide a cow in one of the illustrations. Because my fans just can't get enough of them cows. But right now we're about we're like 77% funded. We need about a little less than $700, and then it'll be funded and we'll be able to make it happen. And today is like the halfway point, so we're really close.
Oh, that's great to hear.
Mm-hmm.
I hope it pushes it over the edge. That's cute. I see what you mean. And I'm looking at the art too. I see what you mean about the artwork. If you look closely, you can tell that they've been cut out. That's sort of interesting.
Mm-hmm. I can try and get do a live stream, just me and her, and talk about how we designed the art pieces, because she has like a really cool way of doing it.
Well, you kind of answered my question with those backer goals. I was trying to find out if you had a build a mech feature for the book.
Kind of. Only if we reach the stretch goals, because the majority of it's already done.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I think the first stretch goal, trying to find where it's at on my page. If we get to 3,900, 8 new illustrations will be added. So that would bring the total of illustrations up to 10 pieces. And everyone would get an extra art print to go for anyone that ordered something that would be shipping. Everyone would get an extra art piece, and we'd get 8 more illustrations. And I'd open up the pledges where you could sort of build a mech, get in on the creative process, and have input. I think I have like 3 or 5 spots for those if we meet that stretch goal.
And the only reason that's not available now is because you've already got the story written out and the illustrations planned out and everything, right?
Yeah. So I'd have to wait until we got to to that stretch goal when we would be adding more illustrations to open up those pledges. So if you really want to hide a cow or get your name hidden in a piece, or help pick a and with the if you would be helping with create one of the illustrations, I'd send you an arc of the book so you could see the book in its whole, and I'd tell you like what scene we were planning on illustrating. You could pick one of those scenes and help us design that illustration.
Oh, cool. Yes, Catholic Lancer in the chat confirms every crowdfunder can use a Build-A-Mech.
They're a lot of fun.
Yeah, that one in particular, the guys hanging out in chat generally, I think everybody's ears perked up when you said mechanical wolf.
One of the ways I wrote this story all those years ago was I had heard about the periodic table of awesomeness. And so I pulled that up and picked like 3 or 5 random things from it and decided to put it into the story. So that included the pirates, the mechanical wolves, dinosaurs. I just kind of like threw it all together. And it actually turned out pretty fun. It's honestly probably my favorite story I've written so far. Definitely, I think Marymae is definitely one of my favorite characters. Just her personality, and she has her scared or weak moments, just as we all do because we're all human. So it shows that, and but it also shows her immense kindness and heart. There's a kind of a redemptive arc at the end. That's really sweet. I didn't expect it when I was writing it, but it ended up happening that way, and I love it.
So where did you come up with the character? Where did she come from?
I probably drew some inspiration from my little sister. I think at that time she was maybe like 3. I don't know, 3 or 4. It's been a while. It's so hard remembering exactly, but probably some inspiration from her. I think when I was writing the fight scenes, I was trying to be like as cool as Larry Correa with his fight scenes. In my own style, but I was drawing some inspiration from how much I love Larry Correa's fight scenes, especially from like the Grim Noir trilogy. But I think I started writing it after this is back a long time ago when I was just writing, just trying to write as much as I could, and I had the first book in a series I was working on. That I'll eventually get back to, but I just finished editing like 100 pages of it that I had so far. And the day that after a couple months of going through it, the very day I finished it, the file corrupted.
No.
And the only other files I had saved was like before I started any of the edits and was missing like 10 pages.
Oh.
It was pretty devastating. And so I was left needing to write because I can't not write, but not having the heart to go back to it yet because it was just so painful. I've since then, properly backed my things or have them connected to a server to be updated so I don't lose stuff like that again. But it was so traumatic. But I still needed to write, so I decided I was going to write a silly story and use the table of awesome, and somehow it all came together. I think I remember what it was. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think it was for a Bane book contest, like a short story contest. Of course, it's not a very short story. I'm very bad at short stories. It's actually easier once you get better at writing. It's easier to write short, at least for me, because then you can actually like condense and know how to write. But yeah, it's more like 11,000 words, so a little long for a short story. But yeah, I think that's how it started. That's right. Yeah, it was for a book contest, a short story contest. I think I sent it in. I may have got it done like right as it was coming up on the time. But I had it written and I ended up loving it, and revised it up like here and there, cleaned it up. Really wanted to put it out, but just it needed pictures. It was just so, like, from the illustration you can see, it really brings out the kind of crazy, whimsical side of the story. So I finally found someone that had the style, because I tried doing some of the illustrations. I tried, talking to people I knew that could draw and different things like that, but nothing really worked. It was just always on the back burner. And then it finally found a home, and I'm super stoked to finally get it out there after like 6 years. And this will be my first like solo work. I've been in a lot of anthologies, but this will be my first book where it's all me, well, in the illustrations.
Well, that must be really exciting for you,
Yeah.
especially with your funding so close to being finished.
Yeah, and as if all goes well, and yeah, I built in lots of fudge time in case things come up. But if we just stay at funding and don't get any more illustrations added, the estimated date for everything to be done and shipped out is by November of this year.
Oh, wow. I guess you said something interesting in there about how the illustrations really brought it to life, and you waited to publish it until you had those illustrations.
Mm-hmm.
What about the story made it that you wanted to wait, and what about the illustrations made you say, yeah, that's the one, or that's the thing I need to get this story out? In other words, what made you wait?
Mm-hmm. I think the main reason I waited was because there was other things on the front of my plate, particularly like the planetary anthologies or life stuff coming up, other stories I was working on. And I think the second reason I waited is I couldn't imagine putting out the story without the pictures. I can't quite pinpoint why. Probably partly because I wanted to encourage it as a book to read to your kids. And so I imagine having fun pictures throughout it to help engage and show the kids what's happening in the story. So I think that's the main reason I waited. And when I met my illustrator when I was still living in Florida, there was a Saturday market every week, and walking around there, seeing all the booths. Um, One time I saw her booth, and she had all her artwork hanging up, and we chatted. Um, and I could see from her illustrations and other artwork that she had that it just fit. Like finally, like that was it. I could tell. And so we started talking. Actually, became really good friends. And she absolutely loved the story. I sent it to her to read over and get her thoughts on. And she loves it. And she had so much fun with creating the characters and everything. And I had a lot that, I've had this hanging on to this story for so long, had kind of envisioned different parts of it. And so I was able to really give her a solid base to start on as far as what I was looking for. And she did an amazing job taking that and working together to bring out the different, like each character. We did a lot of different concept sketches and everything. So it's more of a feeling of I needed illustrations, and I decided to wait for that. And I'm glad I did, because hers was perfect.
That's great. I was also wondering about the length. I don't read a lot, as you may well know.
Mm-hmm.
And so from your description, it sounds like the type of thing you would read as a bedtime story, not a simple picture book for little kids, but younger children. You may read this story to them at bedtime or read chapters from it. Is it the kind of story that you finish at bedtime, or is it the kind of thing where you read a little bit every day?
I think it would be a story that you would read over a couple nights. So it's roughly like 40, 50 pages, if that kind of gives you more of an idea.
Yeah.
So about 11,000 words. So not maybe a little bit long to sit and read all of it in one night, unless it's just you reading through it and you're like a fast reader. But yeah, I would say it's more of a read over, maybe 2 or 3 nights. There's not really chapter breaks per se. I'll probably have some breaks in the story once it's all formatted. So more of a reading over a couple nights versus just reading all at once at bedtime.
Cool. I also don't read to children, so I don't know if that's normal or not. But it does seem like what's the word? An unorthodox or unusual length for a story, which is fine by me because I actually prefer them shorter.
Mm-hmm. I would say for just the average adult reading it, it might take like, for a slow reader, it might take like, I don't know, 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I haven't timed myself sitting down to read it, so it's hard to say. But I would say you could easily read it in like a handful of hours, if that. Probably quicker for some people.
What about preview readers? Do you have any beta readers or preview readers that have seen the whole story yet?
I have not set up anything like that yet. So far, it's been my illustrator, my mom, and I think Jaji's read over it at different times. So I've asked her for her opinion on it. But I haven't actually set up any beta readers yet because it's been mostly sitting around done for so long.
This is great. Just off the top of my head, it occurs to me that I have no idea how the children's book business or community works, because we talk to science fiction writers like Jaji and you and many of our other guests, but this is sort of a different. This is a different audience. This is a different market, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. It took me a while to figure out how I wanted to market it, just because it feels like it's sitting between two places where I see it equally marketed towards people like us that like to read science fiction and fantasy, and then I also see it for families of young kids that want to read fun stories too. So I've tried to present both with my marketing and my campaign as a story that you can keep on your shelf, and especially for like the adult side, there's so many days like leap year days or just days where it's like ugh, life, things, I'm tired. you know and so it's short, and you could, even if you just want to flip to your favorite scene, have some fun artwork to look at, read through it as a sort of like a refresher way to pick up your day, remind you of kind of the simple things and having hope even when things are kind of like a mess, and that bit of superversiveness that helps gives you a little something to take back with you into your day.
Sort of like taking some time off and popping your favorite Disney movie in the VCR and
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
I get it.
So I'm not sure how, because I've mostly moved in this community, I have no idea how most children's books are marketed, but this is much closer to regular novels than it is to children's books.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of its own thing. It's very different.
But definitely not the young adult style.
No.
You're definitely you're definitely going after the younger readers or listeners.
I tried to you could say that. You could think of it as, I tried to write it in a fairy tale sort of way.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you read the old fairy tales, they're written in a way that's simple and kind of straightforward, and leave a certain amount of ambiguity for you to fill in your own imagination. But as we know, a lot of them have some pretty heavy content. This one, my story doesn't have like super heavy content or disturbing as most fairy tales are, but it's still written in that way where it's a simple, straightforward way of writing, but the story and the characters are very engaging, which is why I think it works well for both adults, because it's just a fun story, kind of like like you said, like a Disney movie. but it's not like over the head of any like young listeners that are hearing their parents read it.
I think you've mentioned it a couple of times throughout the discussion, but I want to ask directly, what is the moral of your story, if any? Because it sounds like you have an idea, an idea or of a moral to the story.
The moral of the story, I'm trying to see if there's a way I can describe it without giving away any spoilers. But I think the moral would be don't give up when there's a lot of scary stuff going on. It's okay to be scared, and it's okay to rely on the people around you. But always hang on to hope and don't let like the scariness overcome your light.
I think that's a pretty good lesson.
Definitely needed in this world.
That's for sure. In this, the best of all timelines.
Yeah. So yeah, it's something that's it's refreshing. It's good to be reminded of that as adults, and it's a very solid lesson for kids.
Great. Well, I'm afraid you've stumped me. I'm running low on questions to ask. It seems like a really interesting sort of fantasy story aimed at younger kids, and I hope everybody gets a chance to check it out and dig into it. I'm going to look more closely after the show. That's for sure.
Awesome.
What else do you want to say about it?
Um,
Or about anything?
Let's see. I could read an excerpt from it.
What's that?
I could read an excerpt from it, like the first page or so.
Oh, that would be great. Why don't you do that?
Yeah. Alrighty. Let me scroll down. I feel like everyone's got the leap year feeling. All right, so
wait, is there a leap year season like Christmas season?
Yeah, you missed it. I didn't get a present again.
Is it like the second most wonderful time of the year? Leap year?
Yes.
It's the second most wonderful time every 4 years. We should start that. We should start a leap year party.
Hey, we've got 4 years to plan the next one. I think it's a great idea.
See? So you have plenty of time to make it the best. All
so
right.
what is the feeling of the season of a leap year?
Judging by today, it's not so great. We're going to work on the next one.
Okay. We're going to
This is like the leap year hangover.
We're going to make the next leap year the best leap year ever.
Best year. John Monkey in chat, thanks for listening in. I'm glad you could catch us live. He says, Leap Year Presents involve a nice bottle of bourbon. Hey, that's a start. So some of us don't drink, but it's a start. I like it.
I think, I have a theory. I think what's happening is last year we had such a good leap year party, but maybe there's leap year parties every year, but we don't remember them because then the next year that day doesn't come around. So it's kind of like Facebook memories. If it's like not in the database, it's not going to pop up in our head. So I think we had too much fun at the last leap year that we still have a hangover this
That
leap
is
year.
actually very, very, very Mary Poppins. Like the original Mary Poppins stories, if you've ever read those. A leap year day that you go out and have fun all day, but you never remember it because it never happened after. That's completely Mary Poppins. That's such a story that she might have written.
That's probably exactly what's going on.
Like a dream.
Yeah. All right. Would you like to hear the first page?
Yeah.
All right. Here we go. Once upon a time, there lived a little girl in a little town with little to do. She played in the grass where the stream met the trees, and on hot summer days, she sat by the stream and let the water tickle her feet while she licked a popsicle. But none of the other kids wanted to sit with her. They all said the woods near where she played held scary monsters. Of course, she didn't believe them, until the day she met one. On that day, the odd-looking bug boy had bounded out of the woods and over the stream and asked for a lick of her popsicle. Any other child might have run away in fear, for surely they would have thought him a monster. Marymae, however, was a polite little girl and immediately offered to fetch one for him, and she went bounding off to the kitchen. Her mother had been surprised she had wanted another popsicle so soon, but Marymae assured her, "Oh no, it's not for me. It's my funny-looking friend who came out of the woods." And she went skipping away through the backyard again. Her mother never saw the funny-looking boy, so she and everyone else assumed Marymae had made an imaginary friend. After all, many 7-year-olds do. Marymae, of course, knew that that was absurd. When she played with her dolls, they never talked to her on their own. Waldo came up with his own things to say. He would never tease her when she created games of wild imagination to play. He would always play along and sometimes make them even better. But one day Waldo didn't show up to play, and more days passed without any sign of him. Marymae wasn't terribly worried on the first day she didn't see him, but then nearly a week went by, and she knew something must be terribly wrong. Deciding she had to do something, Marymae sat down with pencil and paper. She tried drawing his squat, round body, but couldn't get it quite right. His antlers were crooked, and she didn't know what to do with his arms, so she drew a banjo for him to hold instead. Marymae showed the picture to her mother and asked if she had seen him. Her mother just smiled and patted her head, then went back to calming Marymae's little sister, Dee Dee, who was crying again. When Marymae failed to get her mother to understand that Waldo was missing, she threw the paper away in frustration. The sound of Dee Dee's crying faded into the background as Marymae pushed open the screen door and fled into the backyard. Dee Dee seemed to be crying a lot lately, and Marymae felt like doing the same now. But she wouldn't allow herself to. Even with the nightmares she'd been having about something awful happening to Waldo, Marymae would not let herself fall apart. She knew that crying or giving up right now wouldn't be very brave, and she knew she'd have to be very brave indeed if she was going to find her friend. And that's how it starts.
That's a pretty good start.
So the beginning of the story is her realizing something's up and that she needs to go find Waldo. And then from there, the adventures continue.
I liked. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I liked the touch where her little baby sister also knew something was up or something was happening with her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely intentional.
Yeah.
And it's also a sign that the as they're going through trying to stop him, another thing she has to think or worry about is protecting her little sister.
Cool.
Yeah, that's it.
That was a really nice story. Thank you for sharing that page with us, and thank you for sharing this Kickstarter with us. This is actually pretty exciting.
Thanks. I'm really glad you guys had me on. It's the hardest thing with any sort of crowdfunding like this is getting the word out.
Oh, for sure. No, are you kidding? We are delighted to have you on. After all, this is the only day of the year that we can do it, I guess.
Man, that would be hard.
Yeah, so whatever book you're coming out with in 4 years, you can we'll have a party.
Only then. I can only come on then. Now this is making me as if there aren't enough anthologies in the world. It makes me want to write a leap year anthology.
Every
Harry
4
Potter
years.
style or some sort of creepy Cthulhu style. Maybe Cthulhu can only come on leap years.
Well, that was really special for you to share with us. Is there any last thing you want to say or any pitch you want to make or anything?
15 more days to go, guys. Let's make it happen. I guarantee you'll love it. Everyone I've talked to about it has loved the idea, and you guys are special. I haven't gotten to share the story out loud like that yet, so hopefully it gives you a taste of what's to come, along with the some images of the artwork.
And if I could say something else,
Of course.
a charming and whimsical children's book like this, if anybody in the audience who's listening, it may be that you have family members who might also like a book like this. Go ahead and pass them a link to the crowdfunding campaign and see if they're interested. They might want to pick up a copy.
If you've got like nieces and nephews, there's a couple options if you want to get your Christmas shopping done early. There's a couple options where you could get like 2 copies of the book, or even 5 if you want to be like really big, and if you got grandchildren or something like that. So there's a couple options if you just want to get a book for yourself, or if you want to get a couple with the intention of making them gifts to families and friends.
That's a great idea. Well, it's been a pleasure as always. Thank you for coming on and chatting with us. I'm done for today. I really hope everybody checks out this Kickstarter and comes and hangs out with us in future Gabs. Appreciate everybody hanging out in the chat, and everybody who's listening later. Thanks for joining us for another Geek Gab. Daddy Warpig?
Oh, this is my part now.
It sure is.
I say something, don't I?
You kind of have a script, though. I don't think you've written it down anywhere.
I wonder if I can. Maybe I can do it. This is Geek Gab with your host, Daddy Warpig.
That's pretty good.
Okay, let's run through this. This is Geek Gab for Saturday, February 29th, 2020. You can, if you are listening to this show later, you can catch Geek Gab on youtube.com/Geek Gab. We're also available on the Google Play Store, on soundcloud.com, and on the iTunes Store. Just do a search for Geek Gab. You can download and listen to us on the device of your choice, or subscribe to us through your favorite podcasting app and get us automatically, so that every single time we do a show, we are there waiting for you to listen to, waiting to brighten your day, even a day as dismal as this February 29th has been. And we want to thank AM Freeman for coming on. I want to thank for everybody who showed up and was in the chat live, and everybody who listens later, folks. We have to sign out for today, but don't you worry, don't you fret. We will be back.